What a 24 hours it's been, Chris. Oh, let me tell you something, okay?
Yep.
As we sit here at 3 p.m. Eastern on a Victory Monday on the South Side Beat here on DK Pittsburgh Sports, November 13th, 2023. I got to tell you, I'm coming in with like I'm skidding. You know how like in the cartoons you have like the cartoon plane that skids onto the runway and like you do the crash landing, like the plane like skirts and then like it like bows up and then comes down and you're finally landing.
Yeah.
That's how I feel right now. I feel like I was in that plane, except for me, it was in that car. Good to be back after quite a roller coaster over 24 hours for myself. I'll get into that soon. But Chris, you got to watch from afar a 23-19 Steeler victory over the Green Bay Packers. This Pittsburgh Steeler team, it's 6-3. It finds a way. The Find a Way 2023 Steelers just did it again against these Packers. And look, I didn't think the Packers were going to keep this close because I didn't believe in Jordan Love's ability to throw the forward pass. But I know Chris has a bone to pick, so to speak, about one of the quarterbacks in this game, if you want to get into that right off the bat.
Yeah. Well, so I titled this episode today, the 6-3 elephant in the room, or the 6-3 elephant in the room. Now, obviously, that's like playing to the Steelers' 6-3 record. I mean, they're not a bad football team, but and Logan says worst 6-3 team in NFL history, but hey, still 6-3. I don't know if I'd say worst. They're not a great, or I would even say they're probably not even a good football team. They're probably an average football team.
Sure.
Now, to be fair, all this talk about Kenny Pickett in the fourth quarter, let's give credit to the defense in the fourth quarter too, because they've been clamping down on games late as well. That's a big reason also why they're 6-3. 6-3 doesn't happen without the defense. I mean, past five games, the Steelers are outscoring their opponents 38-3 in the fourth quarter.
Big deal. That's a big stat that people aren't going to want to talk about.
I mean, now what's their overall point differential on the season? Is like minus 30, something like that.
I'm coming into the show cold, and I'll explain why.
but I mean, so I think it's that, but I don't have that off the top of my head. They're in the red when it comes to their overall point differential. Yet in the past 5 games, they're outscoring their opponents by 35 points in the fourth quarter. That's not just Kenny Pickett and like being Joe Montana in the fourth quarter. That's also the defense saying you're not scoring in the fourth quarter.
Right.
Now, if you Google Kenny Pickett's height, you will also see that he is 6'3".
How tall is that ceiling, according to Menacing Mollusk here in the YouTube comments? The Steelers' ceiling is Kenny Pickett, he says.
The 6'3 elephant in the room is also Kenny Pickett. Listen, I am not, and there's going to be some people who are going to get upset with me about this, and that's fine, because I am seeing it all over social media that anytime somebody wants to criticize Kenny Pickett, it's, oh, we've given up on him, oh, you're a hater or anything.
Yeah.
No.
The Pitt kid, man. You can't talk bad about the Pitt kid.
I'm going to talk bad about the Pitt kid. The Pitt kid. I'm going to talk bad about the Pitt kid.
Nicely done.
It's just, and see, this is the thing. This is the bailout here. I say their ceiling is Canada. Listen. Okay.
Take the floor. I'm going on mute. Take the floor.
When an offensive coordinator is building his playbook and is building the structure of the offense, they play to the strengths of their players. Now, some people are like, well, they don't do that because, look how bad they're off. Okay, well, listen, Najee Harris is predominantly a better zone runner than he is a gap runner. Why do you think the Steelers run predominantly outside zone? Because Najee Harris is a better zone runner than he is a gap runner. He's their number one running back. They're going to do that more often. And when they run with Jalen Warren, they run more gap than they do zone because guess what? Jalen is a better gap runner than he is a zone runner, playing to their strengths. Whenever they decided to go more zone than gap, Guess who they signed on the offensive line? Mason Cole and James Daniels, who, guess what, have experience in zone blocking. Whenever they run whenever George Pickens is catching the majority of his balls, what's he doing? He's in one-on-one coverage on the outside on a go route or on a back shoulder throw because that's what he's best at. When Deontay Johnson is catching passes, what is he doing? Most of the time, he's doing routes where he can gain the most amount of separation from his defenders. They play to the strengths of their players. Now, there are a whole bunch of other things you can criticize about Matt Canada, and that's fine. But the whole point of putting all of that context there is that the offense is built to Kenny Pickett's strengths as well. That's why they run shallow cross like crazy, because Kenny Pickett liked running shallow cross at Pitt. That's also why they run that naked keeper so much, because they want to get Kenny Pickett. They said it out loud in the offseason. They want to get Kenny Pickett on the move and out of the pocket. This is on Kenny too, okay? And it's on Kenny more than people want to say. They just want to use Matt Canada as a scapegoat because he's not a good offensive coordinator. Nobody's arguing with you on that. Nobody is arguing with you on that, especially myself, because I've been very critical of the guy. But
as have I.
Man alive. Okay, now I'm almost done. But man alive, the consistency or the consistently inconsistent play inside the pocket, the happy feet inside the pocket, the wanting to bail too quickly from the pocket, and now also inconsistent throws. And it's not getting better. It's not like we're seeing this slow incline where it's kind of getting better a little bit week after week, where you kind of want to see it a little bit more tilted. It's just this plateau. It's not going anywhere right now. And that's the problem that we're seeing, because he's now 22 games into his career, and we haven't seen a full 4-quarter game from him yet. That's a problem that's bigger than Matt Canada.
Okay. I'm going to take the floor.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to counter argue or anything. I'm just going to bring up my thoughts on the topics at hand here. Okay. We can say at this juncture that Kenny Pickett has not played at a level that was expected out of him for a developing first-round pick. Kane says in the comments here, he's predetermining his passes. Okay. You know what? That's fair. And I think that might be part of the explanation for the lack of throwing the ball across the middle of the field. I think it's multi-layered as to why Kenny did not target the middle of the field against the Packers. Okay. Number one, because Najee and Jalen were running it so well, and that really didn't open up much across the middle of the field. Number two, a lack of Pat Freiermuth. Let's forget Pat Freiermuth has not been on the field for the last couple of games, for the last 4 games now, I think, right? Mm-hmm. He's eligible to come off IR pretty soon, or last 3 games. Again, I'm coming into the show blind. I'm just going off a blank memory. Number 3, and I think this is key. It could be because of design, in part because the middle of the field is not read one on a lot of these plays, and which comes to what Kane commented about Kenny predetermining passes. I think it's also true that Deontay Johnson and George Pickens' strengths lie outside of the boundary. If you might agree with that one, Chris.
Yeah, well, so here's the one thing that I'm seeing with Kenny when it comes to all these outside throws is I think part of this is Matt Canada kind of keeping the handcuffs on Kenny. I don't know, or I won't say handcuffs. I would even say training wheels on Kenny. It's like and honestly, the Packers, after the first 2 drives, when the Steelers went down for a touchdown, they drove down the field, ran the ball well, scored a touchdown, got the ball back. The Packers were like, okay, fool me once, shame on me, or fool me twice, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. Well, shame on them, because the Steelers, they did the same offense or same defense, and the Steelers went right back down the field, predominantly running the football well, and scored another touchdown. Then the Packers were like, screw that, we're not doing this anymore, we're adjusting. And when the Packers adjusted, they went into cover 1 and cover 3 predominantly, and then went predominantly zone coverage, saying, take the safe short outside throws. Go ahead.
Sure.
That's all you're getting.
Okay, so
cover 1 and cover 3 is middle field close. So that just goes to show that, and that's where the Matt Canada issue comes into play, is that when the defense is running middle field closed, they don't even try.
Sure.
But that's also Kenny as well, because there have been opportunities to throw over the middle and they're not there, especially when it's zone. When it's zone, there are going to be windows there.
Right.
It just means you're not going to be able to hit deep.
Okay, Steeler Girl 808 brings it back, and thank you for doing so. She says, even if the Steelers make it to the Super Bowl, we'll all still be complaining. I understand that. But I think there is a topic but I think there is a topic at hand here that is valid, that Chris wanted to bring up to begin the show. And a lot of it goes back to literally week 1, when we were saying, yes, Matt Canada's offense is not sustainable. It is not a product that the Steelers can thrive on every week. They have been outgained in all nine games this season, and yet they are 6-3. Don't make this a mistake. That is not the trend. That is the anomaly. The Steelers are the anomaly in this NFL season. Okay, let's not mince words about that. They are the anomaly. Okay, but I think the bigger issue at hand here is that if the Steelers are going to make a run at whatever it is, postseason, Super Bowl aspirations, if you have them, great. If the Steelers are going to make any kind of run, this defense can only go so far, especially now, as Brent brings up, the inside linebacker situation. Okay? So what we're getting at here is this defense has been bend but don't break. Somebody in my live cues today asked me, and I'll paraphrase it, what's more likely to happen? This offense comes together and brings it all together, or this defense, lack of a better phrase, runs out of gas? And I think the answer is the defense runs out of gas first, because the coordinator has been handicapping this offense. There's no doubting that. We're not absolving Matt Canada of anything. But now it's becoming clear. Now it's becoming clear that there are deficiencies in Kenny Pickett's game, and he has not reached the growth point that was expected by this point. Before we go into Quan Alexander, Robert says, Chris, will you shave your beard if the Steelers win the Super Bowl this year? We need a yes or no on this show.
100%. I will absolutely shave it if the Steelers win the Super Bowl this year.
All right, mark the tape.
And I will even put that into a bigger context. The last time I put a razor to my face, razor, not clippers, because I obviously haven't shaved in this long. I've trimmed.
Right. Yeah.
The last time I put a razor to my face was the day I got married, which was 12 years ago, over 12 years ago. It's been clippers only since then, whether it's like all the way down as far as the clippers go, or it's just trimming up the beard. I don't shave my beard. If the Steelers win the Super Bowl this year, I'm that confident in saying that the way that they're playing right now, they will be a one and done if they make the playoffs. And it's not because I'm like, oh, no, you're a hater and everything. Like, no, I'm because there's a lot of people that still believe that this is a bad football team. It's not a bad team. The problem is that they're not as good as their record says they are, and they are not putting themselves in a position. They're not playing football. I'm really curious to see how this team does when they play the Bengals and when they play teams that are going to be able to put up points. If they get into a shootout, they're done. They cannot win a shootout game, and that is almost a guarantee in playoff games nowadays, because you are going to play up against Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and those guys to try to get to the Super Bowl. You just are. And if you're going to tell me right now that the Steelers, if they got into a shootout, are going to have stand a chance against the Chiefs and the Swifties? Like, really? No. No.
The AFC North is still insane. Ravens 7-3, Steelers 6-3, Browns 6-3, Bengals 5-4. Okay.
I still think they can win the division, like, for real. Like, they are a good enough football team to make the playoffs. Super Bowl is not, unless Kenny goes from doing this to doing this for the rest of the season.
The Ravens have a point differential, and if I'm doing math in my head correctly, of 113. The Browns have a point differential of about, 30, 40, about 50.
I think the Dolphins are a little overrated, though.
And the Steelers are minus 26.
Sam, that's not a
point
shootout
differential.
Game. That's not a shootout game.
23-19 is a Monsters Inc. code, not a shootout. Sorry. If you get the reference, good for you. If not, then go watch Monsters Inc. By the way, the Bengals have a minus 10 point differential. Now, I'm going to argue, like, the Bengals are up on the up and up. Joe Burrow's look better. Jamar Chase's look better. That team has looked better. So that game is not a gimme.
Regardless of what Houston did yesterday, regardless of them losing to Houston is better than anybody wants to give them credit for. They took it to the Jaguars, they took it to the Steelers. They just beat the Bengals in Cincinnati. Houston is way better than people want to give them credit for. Like, seriously.
Real quick before we go into Quan Alexander, the reason why I'm coming into the show sputtering, as I put at the beginning, was coming back from New York was quite something. It's been a really wacky 24 hours for me. Car broke down somewhere outside of Harrisburg, waited way too long to get towed. Finally got towed to a dealership, got into a hotel. It's just been a lot. And, got up really early this morning to get into the dealership to say, hey, I need this fixed as soon as you can. And thankfully, a lot of internet, YouTube is a real good teacher, by the way. So if you think there's a problem with your vehicle or whatever it is,
YouTube can help for sure.
Do a little YouTube, and you can help talk your way out of some potential serious dollars. So
it's good to see you got back safely in one piece. I mean, we didn't even think you were going to be able to do the show today because of everything that happened. So obviously getting back in time is good. But luckily
it all worked out. I was able to get on the road safely, and the good people at this Ford dealership in Harrisburg took care of me. So. Really good, really lucky to be, where I'm at. Luckily, nothing crazy happened. So good to be back. Which leads me to say I did not watch or listen to a second of the Steelers game yesterday.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying I'm coming into the show cold, because I had bigger fish to fry. I'll put it that way. So, we're gonna reset tomorrow. I was obviously not on the South Side today. Nobody was from DK. Sometimes that happens. DK was up in Cranberry, covered the Penguins. I was figuring out my car on the way back from New York, covering Pitt football. So sometimes that happens. That's real life. Corey Kane in the YouTube comments says, people were saying Bengals were legit, but the Texans stink. You're funny. CJ Stroud, to me, is runaway rookie of the year. Offensive rookie of the year. I don't think there's a shadow of a doubt about it. The Texans look like a team. And they might not have it all together. They might miss the postseason this year. But I'm telling you, that team is something. And it's going to be something for quite some time now. DeMeco Ryans, that staff, CJ Stroud, they've been unbelievable. Which, to be honest, makes that loss to the Texans that the Steelers took it looks a little less significant by this point. I mean, the two blowouts, the 49ers and the Texans, you kind of look at that what do you do? Those two teams are just pretty good. Robert says his brother hit a deer in his car, causing $3,000 damage. I mean, that's awful.
Dude, deer can do a lot of damage to a vehicle.
My mom almost had a car total because just driving up 79 one night. I-79 up here in Western PA. Chris knows those deer come at you and you can't avoid them. You can't avoid them. So and Pittsburgh Toddy says YouTube videos help repair dishwasher and pool pump. It really is you have to find the right one. Yeah. Now for cars, you obviously have to get really specific, make, model, problem, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But, the YouTube video, I obviously couldn't just go buy a part and do it myself in this situation. It was something that a mechanic clearly had to do. So luckily it got resolved today, got home safely and in time to do the show. That's what happens when the garage service center opens at 7 a.m. and you could just kind of walk right in right when the door opens and it's like, help. And people help. You got to remember, people are good people and people understand problems and all of that. In case you needed a reminder, there's some good left in the world. There definitely is. And I'm very, very grateful to be back. But tomorrow I will be back on the South Side for a Tomlin Tuesday.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't wait what Mike Tomlin has to say. After Steelers win over the Packers, I think
he's not going to apologize for winning. That's for sure.
Never. Mike Tomlin will never, ever, ever, ever do that. And in fact, I think he's going to be very excited to talk to me and the rest of the Steelers beat tomorrow in person. Of course, looking ahead to the Browns on Sunday at 1 p.m. in Cleveland. And this week is going to be so fun to digest that. A quick programming note, Pitt plays at home. It's kind of weird. Pitt plays at home Thursday at 7 p.m., but I should be able to do the show. It's going to be a weird schedule for me this week because of that college football. And then next Friday, so we don't have to worry about it this Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, I will be traveling to Raleigh for Pitt football. So Chris will be solo next Friday, but we should be good to go this week. Yeah. Again, I was able to make it today, so we're just kind of chugging along. What else stood out to you, Chris, about that game? Now, just from reading the box score and everything, like the big thing to me is Quan Alexander. And
that's a huge loss for sure.
Right. Now, losing Cole Holcomb, as Jim says, inside linebacker room is devastated. Losing Cole Holcomb, losing Quan Alexander now for the season with the Achilles. I mean, look, there's no bones about it. It's a big blow for any team. Losing two starting inside linebackers, especially in a 3-4 setting, in a 3-4 defense that thrives on having those inside linebackers doing so many different things well. Like Cole Holcomb, to me, did everything just about well. And then Quan was excellent in coverage, and Landon's excellent at stopping the run. And now this inside linebackers room really takes on a different identity to me. That's the big thing. Mr. Nick of Time says, what are we doing at inside linebacker? It sucks that Quan's out for the season. It's really tough now. The trade deadline's passed, so the Steelers just can't go get somebody. Can't go get Robert Spillane back or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, look, it's down to the practice squad right now. Tariq Carpenter and Walker, the other middle linebacker that's on the practice squad. Michael Walker has some, starting experience with Atlanta, but this is a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
And it's a tough thing to move on. And the big reason for me, Chris, is because with Atlanta Roberts and Mark Robinson, you have two linebackers that are really good at stopping the run and that aren't amazing in pass coverage.
Yeah, no, it is a big problem on that side of the ball because now, granted, I think I don't care what PFF says. I think Landon Roberts had a really good game yesterday.
He's been tremendous all year.
So
he's been good.
Yeah, Miles Jack retired. So I honestly, even if he were to say yes, I mean, is he in football shape? I mean, once somebody retires, I doubt that they're going to be in football shape, or much. I mean, even if he's like in shape, he's not in game shape. So So no, your options are either what is out there on the free agent market, which I don't think obviously is much, because if there was anybody of any kind of substance there, they wouldn't be a free agent. And then you can look at some other teams' practice squads and see what they're doing and see if there's any guys you like there. But other than that, it's pretty much going to have to be something that's answered internally. Obviously, one way you can do it, and multiple people have brought it up. Bring back the 3 safety set. Obviously, that's a big thing, but you have to have Minkah to do that. Obviously, once Minkah comes back, that will help with that. I don't think this is going to be one of those seasons where Minkah is going to lead the league in interceptions, not only because of the fact that he's been shut out in that category so far, but the fact that they're not using him the same way that they used him last year. I don't think that this is, it's going to be something that the Steelers are going to have to work around, and there's no question about it. I don't know. And so menacing the mollusk already, it says 51 to middle linebacker. No, it's not happening. It's not happening.
No.
And multiple people. So just get it out of your heads now. It's not happening. The Steelers are adamant that they want to keep him on the edge. It's not happening.
And that's from Terrell Austin. That's a Terrell Austin quote. He emphatically, immediately shut it down last week when he was asked directly about moving Nick Herbig inside. Now, okay. He did say, the quote ended with, we don't want to blow through 3 inside linebackers this week. They blew through another one. They have blown through 2 inside linebackers out of 4 this week. So what's Tomlin say? Never say never, but never. I'm not saying never. Terrell Austin's saying never. But if necessity, if it absolutely has to come down to it, then I think they would have to consider it at some point. At some point, sometimes your hand is just forced, right? Now, I think that 3 safety look is going to be important. And I looked through a list of free agents, from the offseason, where have they signed? Where could they be now? And to be honest, the options are just not there. The options are not there in free agency. If knock on wood, okay, and I'm not wishing injury on anybody, but if this situation happened a week ago, Jalen Smith would have been available. They would have been able to go get a really good free agent linebacker, and I think Smith is now with the Raiders. So they would have been able to go played for the Giants, played for the Cowboys, of course, now is with the Raiders. Like, the next available free agent inside linebacker is Dejan Brown, who's played in Tennessee. He's played in Las Vegas. He had 100 tackles for Tennessee, I think, in 2019. So, like, there's at least depth available.
Yeah.
But at this stage, the Steelers are going to go with Elandon Roberts, Mark Robinson, and then you have to look at that practice squad. Tariq Carpenter. And for me, I think the one is Michael Walker to keep a look at, because he has starting experience in the NFL. It's a really tough situation. Like, this is hard to recover. I think people lose sight that this is hard for any team to recover from. Like, if the Dolphins lost Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle for the season, what is that offense going to do? If the Chiefs lost, Sky Moore and Travis Kelce for the year, or Isaiah Pacheco and Travis Kelce for the year, what are they going to do? Now, I'm not like saying that, Cole Holcomb and Quan Alexander were Kelce and Pacheco, but you get what I'm saying. When you lose two really important, impactful starters to any unit, any team is going to have a really tough time overcoming it, and it especially becomes magnified when it's at the same position. That's when your depth gets tested. That's when it's got to come down to Elandon Roberts, Mark Robinson improving in the pass coverage. Yeah. And that's what's going to really be put to the test. Now, the Browns, as we know, love to run it, so maybe not this week as much. But when it comes to the Bengals, bet they're going to test the middle of the field.
Yeah.
When it comes to the Patriots, when they have a guy like Ramondre Stevenson, you bet they're going to test the middle of the field.
If they have somebody who can throw the ball into the middle of the field.
Well, yeah, that's a whole other thing. But, like, okay, let me look at,
of all the teams left on the schedule, the Patriots do not scare me.
I mean, the Cardinals, you really don't have to worry about too much. The Patriots, I guess, unless you neutralize Stevenson. The Colts have Jonathan Taylor. They have options to go underneath. Bengals again at Seahawks with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. And then at Ravens. So, like, there's a mix there of teams that utilize the middle of the field like that, and especially with their running backs. So it's going to take a while.
Like, regardless of the loss to the Browns yesterday, the Ravens are playing such good football right now that it's gonna. Brent, this show needs to be at least an hour. I do have to leave at a certain point because my kids have to get somebody to pick them up from school because they need to be picked up from school.
That's I guess like the big cliffhanger that we've been semi-teasing, just like kind of dropped in. Like that's kind of the reason why. Yeah. Like the 3 p.m. start time works because we precede DK and Ramon, of course. Ramon Foster show at 4 p.m.
Yeah, we won't, and we're not going to run straight into them too. Like even if like we go like 35, 40, 45 minutes, like we're not going to run into DK and Ramon. We want to make sure that you guys get tuned into them because that's the marquee show here on this channel. Like that's right. We're not running into that.
Now, Brent, he says start earlier or after.
Start earlier.
So earlier doesn't really work. Now, there's a lot of reasons because of that, namely because with the Steelers practice schedule, it would be impossible for me to do this show on a daily basis. Like it's been hard enough doing it at 3. This is just full disclosure. This is just
that's insulting. I would never put my kids in an Uber unless I'm in there with them. And even then, I still don't like it. No. I know it's a joke, but no.
Yeah. But no. So believe it or not, so this was a discussion that was had before we started doing this show. 54 episodes ago, however many weeks ago, I guess now by this point, 11 weeks ago almost now. It was a discussion. Do we do it before DK and Ramon or after DK and Ramon? And the initial thought process, this is just full disclosure, was Chris has father obligations to do, obviously, on a day-to-day basis, Monday through Friday. And for me, kind of tossing between Steelers and Pitt as I do, once basketball starts up too, it becomes a little more difficult. Now, there's been travel stuff. There's been being on the South Side. This was before we knew that. This is before we knew like what the Steelers were going to do on a daily basis from a practice standpoint. Because last year we just kind of looked at that schedule and was like, okay, we think locker room's going to be relatively like ending at 2:00, so that gives me time to get home to do the show. Or get to downtown to do the show or whatever it needs to be. And then they drop the schedule for this year and it's like, nope, 2:30 to 3. And it's like, well, we can adjust to that. We can live with that. So, Bob, we appreciate this comment too. The time is the time.
Yeah.
And look, we're grateful to be doing this. We have a ton of fun. We love engaging with you all. We love preceding DK and Ramon as we do on a day-to-day basis because, we're here on the South Side. Let's not forget, me and Chris and I, mostly me, are on the South Side in the locker rooms doing all this, hard-hitting journalism. I mean, it really is at points. And it's a lot of fun. We have a ton of fun doing it, and we get to convey all of that to you directly. Yeah. And, of course, DK and Ramon with their analysis and insight, Chris's analysis and insight. We have a ton of fun doing what we do, and we're glad we get to do it, again, on a day-to-day basis. Chris, any final thoughts before we get out of here on a Monday and I go take perhaps a little cat nap?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of, obviously, you're going to get some pushback whenever you start criticizing the quarterback because the quarterback is it's the position that gets too much credit and too much blame. And so when you're being openly critical, sometimes people are going to push back on that because you're being too critical of one position. The problems that I have with what I'm seeing with Kenny is not reason to say, oh, he's just not the guy anymore. Or just give up on him. Let's start looking for the next quarterback. Again, I'm sticking with the 3-year rule. It's not time to give up on him. But this fan base did not have a problem getting really, really hard on Najee Harris for whenever he stopped performing up to a first-round expectation.
Yeah.
Kenny Pickett is not performing up to a first-round expectation, and it's not pissing enough people off. And that is where I'm kind of like, why? Because here's the fact of the matter is that if Najee Harris never turns into a first-round running back, are the Steelers really that worse off? Sure, you want to hit on that pick. Of course you want to hit on that pick. You want to hit on every single one of your first-round picks. But if you don't hit on Najee Harris, guess what? They found Jalen Warren as an undrafted free agent, and he's pretty dang good. So it didn't take long to find another running back that can be productive, just in case Najee doesn't work out. And the thing is, they didn't even sign Jalen to be a guy who could possibly take over for Najee. It was just, we like this guy as an undrafted free agent. Let's bring him in, see what he can do. And he's turned into a guy who's now in a timeshare with Najee. Kenny is a first-round quarterback. If that quarterback doesn't ever live up to being a first-round talent, that should be the most concerning thing for this franchise, because if he doesn't turn into anything, they have to start all over. That is where I'm lost by what the fan base is doing when it comes to the utter, defend Kenny no matter what. I don't understand it, because you should be a season and a half of got a little bit better. And then right near the end of last year, got a little bit better. The fourth quarter stuff came through. And then it's so far this year, it's just been this plateau that hasn't gotten any better, hasn't gotten worse, but hasn't gotten any better. And that's where I'm there's reason to be concerned. Not reason to give up on him, but reason to be concerned. And any kind of criticism just means, oh, well, you're just giving up on him. No, it doesn't. I'm just saying, any concern right now is valid, especially when you put it in the context of the fact that this guy was drafted in the first round. And when you take a quarterback in the first round, you're taking him with the expectation that he can be a franchise quarterback.
Mm-hmm. That's why you take a quarterback in the first round. You draft him to be your guy for at least the next 5 years, and then you sign him again, and then you hope he's good for the next X years, and you sign him again. Pittsburgh Toddy says, catnaps are a large majority of each day. That is true. They say the perfect nap lasts sometime between 20 and 30 minutes. So I'm going to go rest my eyes for approximately until the DK and Ramon show. The Ramon Foster show starts at 4 p.m. Eastern, as we are getting out of here at 3:34 Eastern on a Monday, a victory Monday. The Steelers are 6-3. We could say Kenny Pickett's not playing well. We can agree upon that. We could say there's still plenty for this offense to clean up. Nothing wrong with that. We could say that losing Quan Alexander is a big, big, big blow, and we're probably right about that.
It's a big blow.
But nonetheless, 6-3 going into Cleveland.
6-3.
We're on to the Browns. He's Chris. I just voice cracked. I'm Corey. This has been the Southside Beat. Cheers, everybody. Have a good day.